The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. We will be starting in about 2 to 3 minutes or so. Just want to give you guys a heads up to make sure that you guys know that your audio is working. If you're having any issues, feel free to submit something via the chat or the questions box, but we will start in a couple minutes. Thanks. Alrighty. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for tuning in on this wonderful Tuesday morning for this month's advocacy webinar. I am your host, JP Dorval, and I am the Advocacy and Public Policy Liaison for Prevention Action Alliance. With us today, I am honored to have two representatives from our state legislature. So please give a warm virtual welcome to Representative Brigid Kelly and Representative Tom Brinkman. The topic of today's webinar is House Bill 532, the Mental Health Education Standards Bill, and Representatives Kelly and Brinkman are the sponsors. So I'm grateful that they were able to join us this morning to discuss it. Now, Representative Kelly, Representative Brinkman, I'm going to pass the mic on to you. If you guys want to introduce yourselves, talk about your districts, and the work that you do in the General Assembly.
Rep Brinkman, take it away.
Great. My name is Tom Brinkman. I am a state representative from the Cincinnati area, the 27th district, which the district adjoins Rep Kelly's. I was served in the Ohio House from 2001 to 2008. Came back in 2015 and completing my third term on my second time around. I am 62 years old. I have been married for 37 years, 6 children, 3 of whom married, and 5 grandchildren so far, with twins on the way in November, but probably be October. But so just live in my neighborhood in Mount Lookout. I've been here pretty much my whole life. Live about 4 blocks away from my first home when I was born, and went to school right about 3 blocks from the school I went to for grade school, and my kids went to. So kind of a Mount Lookout resident here in the a neighborhood of Cincinnati. So I live in the city of Cincinnati my whole life. Brigid?
Yeah, my name is Brigid Kelly. Thanks so much for having both of us. I'm in my second term representing the 31st House District in Cincinnati, which includes all some are part of 17 neighborhoods or small municipalities between North Side and Amberley Village. Like I said, I'm serving my second term in the State House. I live in Hyde Park, which is a neighborhood of Cincinnati, but spent most of my life and grew up in Norwood. I have 4 nieces who are the best thing since sliced bread. Before I served in the legislature, I worked full-time for the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, which is a labor union that represents mostly grocery and packing and processing workers. And I still work part-time there now, concurrently as I serve in the legislature. I am a lifelong resident of the 31st House District in the Southwest Ohio area. Went to St. Ursula Academy for high school, then on to Xavier for undergrad and University of Cincinnati for graduate school. So we're really excited to be here and to talk about this legislation and about the potential impact and positive impact that it could have on kids in the state. So thanks again for having us today.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining me. So topic of today, House Bill 532. And I have a PowerPoint up for all our listeners. And I also included not the fiscal analysis, but the bill analysis in the handout section. So if people want to look at the bill analysis for this bill, that should be in your handouts. But introduced last March on the 3rd, referred to primary and secondary education committee on the 10th. Representative Brinkman, Representative Kelly, do you guys want to talk about the origin of this? How did this come about? Where is this bill currently in the legislative process? And what is the strategy for the rest of the General Assembly, given that the General Assembly is coming to a close this winter?
Tom, do you want to talk a little bit about how we got to where we are, and then I can talk about the pathway forward, if that'll work?
Sure. Thank you. Well, when after the election, what is that, 18, 20 months ago, I had seen a candidate who was running for state senate named Sarah Bitter, and she was very passionate on issues that had to do with mental health and developmental disabilities. So upon my getting sworn in 2019, I reached out to her. Brigid helped facilitate a meeting with her and Senator Wilson at the offices of Hamilton County Developmental Disabilities. And there we talked about various things that we could do in the budget. And Sarah had brought up this issue that she had been working on with 1 in 5 here locally, and Nancy Miller, who was leading that effort, about trying to get this type of training and into schools, just so that folks would be thinking about it. Right now it just kind of they knew it was out there, but they really didn't have any way to attack it and try to deal with these issues. So through that, we went through some drafting of legislation, got feedback from the various advocates, and we introduced the bill with a strong group of co-sponsors. I think about a quarter of the General Assembly at the time co-sponsored it. I think the key reason we got so many co-sponsors, quite frankly, is because we made it permissive. It was not mandatory, and that certainly brought a lot of folks on board. Then, the legislative process is, you hit markers. So, you get folks on board, you get buy-in from the advocates, you get feedback from other legislators. That helps you get a good co-sponsor list. You introduce it. You get, and then you got to then you get in a bill analysis, and if you can get another hearing, you get a fiscal note. So there's lots of markers you got to hit along the way, and that's what we've been working hard in a very tumultuous period in our history.
And I think so I think to Rep. Brinkman's point, you're all certainly familiar with the legislative process, and it's not easy to change a law for better or for worse. And so, we were, I think, optimistic when we first introduced this bill because it is permissive, which made a lot of our colleagues feel more comfortable in supporting it. I think there is broad recognition that we need to be mindful of mental health education and looking at the real way that that access to mental health resources and things of that nature can impact outcomes for kids and for adults in our communities. And so we were optimistic when we were quickly assigned to a committee and had a hearing. And so we have been working through some of the questions from the committee members. So I think this bill has been generally pretty well received. We've had some questions about whether the bill is repetitious and duplicative. I think one of the challenges that we've had, and Tom, I don't know if you want to speak to this a little bit, is about this idea of, is this a health standard? Is this not a health standard because Ohio doesn't have health standards? We're one of the only states that don't have that. And so it ends up in this patchwork of trying to put together, sort of the educational modules and the tools that kids and educators need, but in a way that some people perceive as not being as cohesive as it should be. And so that has been, I think, a little bit of a challenge for us in making sure that folks know that this is not repetitious, this is not duplicative, because while there is the recognition that it is important, it's also as much about finding the pathway of how we get there and as that we actually get there.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. And so currently, what does the revised code say about, mental health education? Because I know you said that Ohio doesn't have health standards, and I think in the bill analysis, it's that this reads that it permits schools to teach this type of education. Currently in the Ohio revised code, there isn't any language against education like this, correct? I just want to clear that up because I think that was a question that I've been hearing from folks. And I don't know if you guys have any insights into that.
To the best of our knowledge, there's nothing that would preclude us from establishing this type of curriculum, at least that I'm aware of.
Okay. Yeah, and that was my understanding too. I just wasn't sure if you guys heard anything from opponents or other groups. So I mean, this is very important, right? Especially, in COVID, we're seeing at the community level a behavioral health surge. More people are feeling anxious, more people are feeling depressed, and with schools going to open up and with the uncertainty around that, we're going to see more behavioral health issues, especially amongst our teachers and our students. Um, but when looking at the path forward for this bill, how do you think COVID is going to affect it? I know there's a $300,000 appropriation, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think $150,000 of that goes to the development of the curriculum, and the other $150,000 goes to grants for schools to implement this. But given that we're in kind of a funding deficit because of tax revenue and stuff like that, how do you see that playing with the passage or path forward for this bill?
So I'll go ahead and then Rep. Brinkman can also weigh in on this as well. So, I mean, I think we're definitely in a unique time, and COVID-19 has impacted every piece of the state, including the budget. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we can't find resources for the things in which we need to invest. COVID-19 has exacerbated a lot of already existing problems, and made them worse, and has also revealed some problems that maybe folks didn't recognize were there to begin with. And so part of what we need to do is to ensure that folks have the tools that they need in order to continue to go on about, their business of educating our kids and being able to, work and provide for their families. And so, we have to make investments in helping people to have a better life and to have the tools and the skills that they need. And I know that especially during the next budget process, folks are going to be trying to squeeze 2 pennies together to get $1. But at some point, we can't just stop investing in things that are going to help create transformative change for people in our communities.
I mean, I agree completely.
Well, when Governor DeWine came in and had his first budget, and he asked for hundreds of millions of dollars for wraparound services, with really no idea how to spend it. And then the House actually added funds to that. So, we were talking over $300 million for those. And as we were working on how we're going to figure out how to spend it and where they're going to put the money to, unfortunately, with the coronavirus, he had to cut that right away. And but he has spoken about, we have a $2.7 billion rainy day fund that he felt he could apply to some of this stuff. So yes, it's coronavirus, the COVID, whatever you want to call it, crisis is certainly going to influence this. But I think that's why we have to continue pushing the legislation, pushing it forward by making it permissive. That really helps because they're very reluctant to put anything that's going to be a drag on the budget before they even know how bad the budget's being influenced by things like as small as closing bars down at 10 o'clock, which just started, a few weeks ago. But that's going to influence liquor sales. That's going to influence how much money that brings into the government, although I know a lot of liquor sales go to the Jobs Ohio. But all those things work together. So we really don't know the true impact. But I think that from Rep. Kelly, in my point of view, is all the more reason to continue pushing the legislation so that if we have a good plan going forward when funding opportunities come, they'll look at this as, hey, this is something that's already fully baked. It can help with the crisis and the suffering that is going on with our children, students in school, and this is an option we need to fund going forward. So that's our hope with this.
Right. That makes complete sense. So at this point, I'm actually going to open up the questions box. If any one of our listeners has a question, please put it into the questions box. We do have one that came in, and one listener has a question about the 300,000. He asks, is this money enough to address the entire state? And do you guys see this type of education extending further beyond schools, but into communities to help families and work environments? Is that something that you guys have considered or are looking at?
So I'll say, we have to be able to get this bill passed in the first place in order to expand where it might be available. And so, we always need more resources for things than there are available, right? So we have tons of ideas, but not always the resources necessary remedy some of those issues. So I will speak for myself in this, would it be great to have more resources for this? Yes. Could we do more with more resources? Yes. Am I optimistic that that will be there? No. But I think once we get this bill passed and can establish some good outcomes and show, more about the importance of the work that is taking place, then I think that might create more avenues to expand this. But we really want to start in schools to give kids a foundation, as they're going through some of the most, transformative and impactful times of their lives as they're, moving along their educational journey.
Well, our wand is bigger than our wallet. And so, our goal is pretty much to have something there that if a school district decides that this is important, there's a program and a curriculum there that they can integrate. In one of my school districts, Forest Hills, Anderson Township, Newtown, and Hamilton County, Cincinnati area, they had a teen suicide for one high school, and about a few weeks later, the same high school, another suicide. And that certainly shook up that community, and they were reaching out for resources to deal with that. And perhaps that's the time when a school district says, hey, we could, I hate to, balance needs, hey, we could send a bunch of kids to Germany for the summer, or we could work on this program to make sure other kids are safe because we just had these two suicides happening. They have to balance those types of needs, and maybe that's when they choose, let's look at this curriculum as opposed to sending off the kids on the summer program. Those are choices, kitchen table choices that we all make when we are balancing a budget. Maybe that's what they have. But if we have this curriculum there, if we've worked real hard on this program, it's going to be easier for them to make that choice than not. And as far as spreading the communities, not every kid. I ride my bike around the community all the time, and we have bike trails. Not forcing every community in the state to have bike trails doesn't make sense. They have to figure out what's good for them, and maybe there are communities that are suffering due to economic decline. Maybe the largest employer leaves of that county or community, and they see that this is something they really have to work on and draw down. I mean, maybe some of these programs could have helped with the opiate crisis that we face in the state. Now, I know addictions can somewhat be physical also, but at the same time, there are some mental health techniques that could be used to work to mitigate addictions, and maybe that's something that we could spread there too. Because again, it's 1 in 5. It's just not 1 in 5 children. It's 1 in 5 adolescents, adults, seniors. The seniors right now are feeling tremendously isolated because of the restrictions with COVID. So anyway, it could help everybody, and we're just trying to do the best part we can.
Awesome. Thank you for that response. We do have one question from a listener. So the prevention field does a lot of work in schools. And as a result, we have a lot of evidence-based programs that we implement when we do work in schools. And one listener wants to know why we're choosing to go through the State Board of Education as opposed to promoting the evidence-based programs that exist that people utilize. So what is the benefit of going through the State Board of Education and having mental health education standards as opposed to taking the evidence-based programs that we currently have and promoting those?
So I'll take a stab at this, and I'm not sure if I'm completely understanding the question the right way. So, one of the things that we think is important about this is that it provides districts flexibility for what is best utilized in their area. So we are not prescribing anything to anyone. We're just saying that the Board of Education needs to adopt these standards, and then the districts can implement them as they see fit. And so this has been some of the conversation that we're having, which is, who's teaching them, how does it work, what does it look like, and we expect that will be, some pretty intense and ongoing conversation. But we're trying to strike a balance between ensuring that this curriculum is available and giving folks the flexibility that they need district by district.
All right. No, I think that response makes sense. And kind of adding on to that, Representative Kelly, I think, there's a level of power that comes from working with the State Board of Education to establish standards. So I think as a field, we should look to taking components within the evidence-based programs that we have and then having the State Board of Education implement those. So I guess it's more of a question of we need to make sure that prevention is at the table when the State Board of Education builds out this curriculum. And I don't know if you've had conversation with them about how they plan to go about that. I know there are plenty of groups within the behavioral health field that probably want to have some sort of say as to, what this looks like. So I don't know if they've spoken to you about a process or if they're going to have some sort of stakeholder meeting to discuss what needs to go in there, or if there's already sample standard language that they've already kind of started drafting.
I don't believe that they've started. Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Well, I guess what I was hoping would occur is we did speak with the chairman of the committee. He he's a former teacher. He recognizes these problems occur. We got our first hearing. I was hoping we could have in a second hearing the advocates of the bill, the folks we originally spoke with, come and give their point of view. And then that starts opening up a conversation where we can have that interested party meeting and start moving that along. That's the, like I said earlier, the kind of the markers, the steps that I see this legislation having to take. And so yes, we're not trying to shun anyone who's got good input. We're just trying to keep the ball rolling and go through this so that we can get it to a wider audience, get more people talking about it. Certainly, things, we've had lots of changes in the House, in our state, in our nation the last few months, and trying to keep it focused is part of our job, but it is a struggle. But I do want to let those listening on know that we do want their input. We're not just saying it's our way or the highway. It's as drafted. By no means. It's just that we're trying to push it along a process that will invite that interested party meeting that gets a lot of other people's input involved.
Got it. So we have two similar questions from individuals. One asker references a bill that was actually in the 132nd General Assembly, House Bill 502, but there's a similar bill that recently passed out of the House, House Bill 123, which was sponsored by Representative Manning. And this bill touches on school security and youth suicide awareness training. So the question is, what is the difference between, if you guys are familiar with the bill, what is the difference between this bill and that bill? It's my understanding that for the youth suicide training, it's just one class over the course of a school year for, I believe, everyone through that is in K through 12, but I'm not sure. I'd have to double check on that. But what is the difference between those two bills or proposals, if you guys are familiar with them?
I'll say, this is Brigid. I'm not an expert on 123, but this is what we mentioned before, some of the conversation that we've been having about trying to ensure that this is not duplicative or repetitious. But I would say that this bill tends to be a little more broadly focused than just that specific subject area, and we like to make it a little bit more holistic than just that one sort of topic. But again, this is part of the challenge we have in trying to piece together curriculum to ensure that our young folks have access to the education and training and resources that they need without taking sort of a bigger picture approach to it. But I think that, the likelihood of passing a sort of holistic health standards bill is not likely. So, this is the world in which we live. So we're trying to do the most that we can in the circumstances under which we exist.
Right. No, that makes sense.
Well, I think that while it's helpful to have a class on suicide prevention, again, it's a mandate, just like we mandate personal finance curriculum for high schoolers and things like that. And that's a class, and I get that. What I feel our bill is drilling down to is we're making the entire education system aware of mental health issues from K through 12. The best example I was told was, a little second grader, he feels sick to his stomach because there's a test coming up. Well, is he really sick because he had a bad, cheese sandwich in the cafeteria, or is he anxious? And training teachers so that they can recognize the difference early on when children are starting to have these coping skills in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, all the way through, and giving them the coping skills so that they don't get spiral into more and more depression, mental issues, that type of thing. It also says to high school, do you have a safe space there? Is there a place where a high schooler, when he or she is feeling bad, I don't know whether it's a bullying situation, whether it's the pressure of all the classes, whether maybe parental pressure to, you better do well so you get in a good good college. All those things, again, getting them the coping skills to deal with that. Maybe there's a safe space they can be in the high school, someplace where they can calm down, get a little distance from the pressures. Again, all that is what can, if we don't cope with those early on, then when they are teaching that one class for a quarter in high school, it may be too late. That's an important thing, so that kids can see warning signals and maybe alert a parent or adult or a teacher for a friend or classmate that's having these issues. But I would like to think that what we're trying to do is catch it early on by educating administrators, teachers, and students as they move through the process, that there is an opportunity for them to take a break, to deal with these situations so that they have good mental health down the road. So I think ours is, I don't want to say ours is deeper and more long lasting and wonderful and better than somebody else's bill. It's just that I think that's what our focus is more of a long range approach to these issues.
Right. So I do want to be respectful of everyone's time. I did say that this was going to close at 10:30, and our questions box is blowing up, which is a good thing. So I do have two last questions. One is from a listener, and one is just a general question. So one listener asks, we're referencing curriculum and we're referencing standards. They want to know whether the standard is going to become the curriculum, or that we're just focused on a broad set of standards and each school or each district is then going to be responsible for developing that curriculum. Just want to clarify that for folks.
Yes, so we're establishing standards, and then the district can have their curriculum so long as it accomplishes the things that are laid forth in the standards.
Got it. Got it. So one last question, a general question, and for those of you who did not get your question answered, feel free to email me afterwards. We can work through this, but just a general question. To support this, what are you guys looking to constituents and individuals interested in this for? Like, how can we help?
So I would say come testify, send in written testimony, email us, call us, let us know what you like, what you don't like, what we should be thinking about, because we would really appreciate your participation in the process of making our bill better so that we can get it passed.
That's all good. I'm working with, I have a call in today to the new chief of staff or interim chief of staff in the House, Christine Morrison. I'm going to talk to her a little bit about our bill. I'm going to probably touch base with Chairman Jones of the committee, make sure that when we do resume session in September, that we can be there for try to get our second hearing to continue pushing this ahead. So, I don't know if any of you specifically know anyone on the Education Committee. If you do, and I certainly don't know the names offhand, please be in touch with them and encourage them to ask for additional hearings on our bill. Some chairmen like that, some don't. So, a lot of discretion should be used, but we're going to continue to push it because I think it's a very important piece of legislation.
Right. Awesome. Well, I do have both of your offices' contact information up on a slide. And I just want to reiterate this for folks. This bill has had one hearing. There still is a proponent hearing to be had, still is an opponent hearing to be had. So there is time for those of you who have recommendations and amendments and things that you want to see and want to add as the experts in the field. There is time to add those in. So feel free to work with me. Feel free to contact Representative Kelly and Representative Brinkman's office with any addition that you guys might have, support, concerns, all of that. And we can work through this to make sure that this bill is as good as it can be. Representative Brinkman, Representative Kelly, once again, I thank you guys for joining me this morning to talk about this important bill. Mental health education standards is critically important, especially, during these trying times. So I appreciate the work that you guys do. So thank you so much. And for those of you who are interested in the nitty gritty of the language and kind of getting deep into it, feel free to email me directly as well. My email is up on the screen, jpdorval@preventionactionalliance.org, and I'll be in contact with the representative offices to make sure that any questions are answered, so that we can be kind of a conduit for you guys for the field. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, guys. Thanks, everyone. We will see you guys next month.